So the latest chapter in the Suits universe, Suits LA, recently came to an end with its first and only season since it's been confirmed that the show has been cancelled. However, with this being the second unsuccessful spin-off from Suits after Pearson, I wanted to talk about the spin-off itself and why it wasn't as well received as the original show. Alongside that, I wanted to talk about some ideas I had for a season 2 as well as what the next spin-off could entail. Now, I may be in the minority when I say this, but I did actually enjoy Suits LA. As a casual fan of the original show's world, I did quite enjoy these new characters and the backdrop of Los Angeles. And whilst he is written a little too much like Harvey in some aspects, I thought Stephen Amell was pretty good as Ted Black, and I quite enjoyed the story we got with his character. Regarding the supporting cast, I thought Josh McDermott was great as Stuart Lane. It seemed pretty clear to me at least that Ted and Stuart were meant to be the Harvey and Lewis of this new show, which I could kind of see from the get-go. And I would have loved to see that friendship explored had the show continued. I also quite enjoyed Brian Greenberg as Rick Dodson and Lex Scott Davis as Erica Rollins, and these two were clearly written as the quote-unquote Mike and Rachel of the show with the will they, won't they storyline. Though in the case of Rick being the quote-unquote Mike Ross of the show, he doesn't have a photographic memory, so that in of itself was a disadvantage. One thing that stood out to me, at least when I watched the show, was the backdrop of Los Angeles, which I did honestly quite like and presented a new angle that the original show never really tackled in exploring the entertainment industry. Also, having been a fan of Nickelodeon back in the day, I did quite enjoy seeing Victoria Justice pop up for a few episodes, and it does seem like she may have been planned to be a recurring character going forward again had the show continued. Now, the big question with Suits LA is what exactly went wrong? Well, there are a few things to discuss in that regard. One of the main complaints was that the show seemed a bit too generic and that more emphasis should have been placed on the actual backdrop of LA, which the show was being sold on. One flaw that I noticed while watching it was that the first season, in my opinion, was trying to do too much too quickly. The first season of the original Suits show didn't try to do too much. You had Mike and Harvey working a case, a few scenes with some side characters, a couple of goddams are spoken, and then the case more or less gets solved. With Suits LA, however, the writers just dove straight into the deep end. Flashbacks, a murder trial, and relying on the cameos from actors from the original show. Look, I get why it was all done. The original Suits show was pretty good, and I think this spin-off was greenlit just because of the massive boom the original show got on streaming. In my opinion, I think Season 1 should have just started off on a much smaller scale, focusing on smaller cases without the need for any flashbacks focusing on Ted. We don't need to play every hand at the first hurdle, if that makes any sense. Honestly, the flashbacks to Ted's past with Harvey and the Pellegrini case could have made up an entire season of the show, and then Lester's murder trial could have made up another season altogether on top of that. Now, I do get why Gabriel Macht and Rick Hoffman were asked to come back for this show. It helped connect it to the original Suits series, plus it did provide some story details on what Harvey and Lewis had been up to since the end of the original show in 2019. Though, then again, the actual show timeline-wise didn't end in 2019. Long story. Now, this for me is an example of the writers playing their best hand too soon. Bringing Harvey and Lewis back in the first season too soon basically ruins that momentum. If you want to bridge together this show with the original, then perhaps bring back some of the recurring side characters from the original before getting to the larger main characters. For example, if we were to get flashbacks to Ted's time as a prosecutor, then we could have had Gary Cole come back as Cameron Dennis for an episode and start from there. Have an episode where Stuart or even Rick goes up against Travis Tanner, who was one of the main adversaries, or recurring ones from the original run of the show. Or better yet, you could even have another episode where Ted's going up against Dana Scott, a dynamic I would have genuinely loved to see on this show in particular. My point is, you can have cameos from original characters, but it needs to start small, bringing in recurring characters from the original, and then if things go well, that's when you can start using the heavy hitters like Harvey and Lewis, and Mike and Donna to an extent. Now, as I said earlier, this first season was overstuffed with too many stories. We had Ted's past as a prosecutor with those consequences being explored in modern day when Harvey turns up later on. Then you've got Lester's murder trial, which in my mind parallels the Hessington oil storyline from season 3. And then you've got all the firm stories on top of that. How I would have done it is, you start off with having a different entertainment related case per episode. When this spin-off was announced and revealed to be set in Los Angeles and the world of entertainment law, I genuinely had a feeling that we would have had a similar situation to The Boys, which took inspiration from current world events to actually shape the stories. One storyline could have seen a movie studio shelf a film to never release it, or another studio getting sued for cancelling a movie just for a tax write-off, which I think actually got referenced in the finale. Now, another idea I had was to perhaps explore some movie studios facing consequences for using AI related stuff to avoid paying actors, and then you could even have an episode devoted to a gender pay gap maybe. Once you've done that, then we can move on to a bigger storyline with season 2, which can focus on Ted's past as a prosecutor. From there we can bring in some members of the original cast. As I said earlier, focusing on Ted's past in the DA's office provides the opportunity for Cameron Dennis to make a cameo appearance. And the majority of the flashbacks are set in 2010, a year prior to the events of the original show regarding the timeline. In the present day, you could focus on the running of the firm with a few smaller stories here and there, and then we can shift focus to Harvey coming into the picture and how those two get Pellegrini locked up again. And once we've explored Ted's past as well as getting the show on some solid ground, then we can do a bigger storyline with Lester's murder trial, and in this scenario you can devote more time to the story and focus more on the important parts that need to be explored. Now obviously season 2 isn't happening since the show has been cancelled because of low viewing figures and some negative reviews. But what could a second season of the show have looked like? For one thing, the finale suggested that Ted would be getting back with his ex, and that the phones would indeed be merging, so the main characters would all be back together under one roof. Alongside that, we could have seen cameos from more original cast members. I think it was said that Rick Hoffman was planned to recur on the show as Lewis, though I don't know how accurate that report was. I think it would have also been possible to see Patrick Adams make an appearance as Mike Ross, given that he said in the past he would be open to coming back for more.
I've told Aaron clearly I would always be happy to come back when the time is right.
Absolutely.
Ditto.
Other than Michael Lewis, as mentioned, I would have loved to see Dana Scott or Travis Tanner return in some way, and it would have been even better if you had one of those characters join the firm, and have them actually join the main cast, which would have helped keep the fans happy, as now there's more of a quote-unquote original link to the actual show. However, with Suits LA cancelled and no definitive word on another spin-off happening anytime soon, what's next? Well, there's been a lot of talk on seeing Mike, Harvey, Donna and Rachel from the original show return for a quote-unquote Suits Seattle spin-off, though given that Gabriel doesn't really seem to be interested in acting anymore, and Meghan Markle definitely not acting anymore because, well, she's technically married to royalty now and that was the whole reason she left, it does stand to reason that another spin-off won't be happening anytime soon. Unless someone can convince Gabriel to come back, it will be off the table. Now, there has actually been a lot of talk from cast members in the past about making some kind of reunion movie, which I have to admit could work.
It wouldn't surprise me if they did a model where you end up having some type of film.
We'd have so much fun.
It would be a blast.
Getting the gang all back together.
I mean, I'm just gonna put that out there.
Though, as with the Suits Seattle idea, this does fall down when you realise Gabriel might not come back for it. And then, of course, the Meghan situation, but if Aaron Korsh could find a way to make it work, then I'd love to see it. But that concludes my thoughts on Suits LA, its cancellation, as well as looking at what could have been done differently. If you guys have any of your own thoughts surrounding the show itself or anything I talked about in this video, then feel free to drop a comment below. And while you're here though, be sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos like this one. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you very soon.